sanitary. Until you can't flush your toilet, you don't realize how much you appreciate it. The good news has been in Oregon, we have 42 lakes. People are going to need to get creative. It's not if we run out of water, it's when.
Well, you know what time it is? We got to talk, because yesterday, as I was scrolling through TikTok, what was the one video that I saw probably 30 to 40 times on my For You page? That would be the mothership that was allegedly filmed in Fort Myers. Have you seen it? You haven't? Let me show you.
From not being there to being there, and I think I just caught it.
Now, the lady who took that video said in the video that she had been watching the beach cams for weeks and weeks, hoping to get a glimpse of the mothership, and then, luck would have it, she caught that.
Cam, look.
Out of the, I would estimate around 30 to 40 videos and photos that I saw yesterday, they're all of this mothership in Fort Myers. So I want to know, have you seen this video? What do you think? I know we've been talking about motherships and UFOs and UAPs for a while now, and them making themselves known and present and visible, but have you seen this video? Have you seen a mothership with your own eyes? Do you believe that all of this is actually taking place? Because that's the conversation I want to have with you today. I have my beliefs. I want to know what yours are. And remember, anything we talk about and discuss is for learning, information, and entertainment purposes only, because it's not up to me to tell you what to believe. That's up to you. But let's have this conversation. Motherships, they're making themselves known now.
So you're telling me that President Trump just came out earlier this week at the G7 and said that the world's oil reserves will run out in 4 weeks. And that's why there was like pressure to put on for the peace deal in Iran. Trump said that without a deal and the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, the world was headed toward an economic catastrophe. So what does Bibi do? He goes and blows up more of southern Lebanon. And Iran is like, bro, we just said we weren't going to do this anymore. So they're like, America, we're through. We're done. 60 days. Negotiations, we're not doing it. So back to what President Trump said. 4 weeks, guys. 4 weeks. Is this why Marco looked the way he did when President Trump was announcing everything? And he almost went ghost-like when Trump talked about the 4 weeks things, because that wasn't something that really was published. You know what I mean? Here's the thing, though, is that if we take the L and get the hell out of Iran and just be like, you're on your own, Israel, that's when the puppet masters come to play. And it's because they've infiltrated our entire government and monetary policies.
Canada is on the verge of criminalizing the Bible and Christianity, and barely anyone is talking about it. Bill C9, a bill aimed at targeting hate speech, has just advanced through second reading, and the reason why this is so dangerous is, well, first of all, there's no such thing as hate speech. The government hasn't defined it, meaning it's left up to the police or judge to decide based on their feelings if something is hate speech, and it directly targets biblical passages. As part of a deal Liberals struck with the Bloc Québécois, they've agreed to remove a good faith religious text protection that exists in law. This means that anything said by a Christian, whether in a church service, as part of reading the Bible, sharing their faith on a YouTube video, or even in private with someone, could lead up to 2 years imprisonment because some cog in the machine decided it was hateful based on their feelings. They haven't defined which Bible passages would be banned, but even if they did, this is the government directly intervening with people's faith and potentially deeming Christianity a criminal offense. We're at the point where the government may even ban the Bible altogether, we suppose.
Yo, every single place you go, there's no water. So you in San Juan, you gotta use the restroom? Good luck, you gotta go in the woods somewhere.
Okay, you're probably feeling it in your wallet. Money is stretching far less than it did this time last year, and inflation is once again on the rise, hitting us just about everywhere we shop. The latest numbers show inflation jumped to more than 4% between April and May. Our business and tech reporter Scott Budman breaks it down for us, starting with gas. Scott.
Yeah, here at the gas station is probably where we notice inflation on a day-to-day level the most, but it's much wider than that. In fact, the Consumer Price Index, which tracks what we buy in our everyday lives, is at its highest level in 3 years, which means no matter what it is you're paying for, you're probably paying more for it. If it seems like we're all spending more money these days, we are.
The consumers always suffer.
And the latest inflation numbers, almost double the 2% growth the Federal Reserve was hoping for, show that consumers are getting hit. Gas prices up more than 40% in 1 year, boosting fuel and energy costs by more than 25% each.
Part of your paycheck, I know that. I mean, if you're spending $100 to fill up every other day, I mean, you got to make a lot of money to be covering that. So, I don't know, it's pretty ridiculous.
And bringing everything else we do along with it. Cooking at home costs more. Eating out, also more expensive.
But we're also seeing it in the grocery stores. We are seeing it in even service industries, right? Because everything costs more.
If it all makes you want to get away, well, that costs more too.
Yeah, definitely. I think my tickets over here were maybe $800 just for a few days to fly over. So I've definitely noticed an increase in prices for that.
A spike in energy costs sparked by the jump in oil prices, and we're all paying because of it. Scott Budman, NBC Bay Area News.
Not in the Middle East that want to be members. You'll be seeing that soon.
And of course, the prophecies of economic doom. And yet after all this, Trump is still in the arena, fighting, and poised to deliver 3.5 years of peace and prosperity.
3.5 years of peace.
In order to implement any big society-wide change, and I think your COVID example is a perfect one, you really have to construct a crisis, and the change is a solution to whatever the problem you created is. So like if you, I don't know, want to create a new federal agency, you probably need a 9/11. If you want to make biometrics the rule, you probably have to push AI and make the case that like, we don't know who anybody is because everything's a deep fake. So you have to have biometrics in, you know, in your Twitter handle, etc. What will be the crisis that justifies digital currency?
So let me step back for a second, because what I see is the crisis is only the apex and the third act. To get the crisis working, you have to get thousands of things in place. So, for example, coming into COVID, I don't think you could have done COVID without, for example, getting Federal Accounting Standards Advisory Board Statement 56 into place in 2018, and then having the central bankers meet and approve the going direct reset.
I'm not familiar with that.
I would be delighted to tell you about that, because this is one of those things that sounds very boring, that is like a 10 Richter earthquake. So for many, many years, there was a group of us who were trying to bring as much transparency to the fact that there was serious criminality going on in the federal accounts, and $21 trillion was missing. And that was happening because the federal government refused to obey the financial management laws. So they are required, you're a citizen, you pay your taxes, they're required to give you, you give them your 1040 and they're required to give you back and says, okay, here's how we spent your money. And that's required in the Constitution and the financial management laws. The federal government has since the mid-90s been in complete violation of those laws. So there was a lot of pressure that was brought to bear when Dr. Mark Skidmore with Solari published his report on the 21 trillion missing. And so pressure. The DOD keeps saying, we can't pass an audit. We're not going to pass an audit. And then 2018, remember the Kavanaugh hearings?
Very well.
Okay. Everybody was very busy, watching the Kavanaugh hearings. The federal government, the House, the Senate, and the White House, all together, October 2018, published an administrative policy called FASB 56 that basically said in violation of the Constitution, the financial management laws, and the financial management regulations, that they could set up a secret group of people by a secret process and pull things out of the government's financial statements and keep them secret, not just for the 24 covered agencies, but for 150 plus related governmental entities. And when you take in the national security and classification laws, that means also that the big banks and contractors working for the federal government can do the same.
Right. That's
Now,
Deloitte and JP Morgan too.
Right. And what that means is basically the entire large cap stock and bond market in the United States is secret. The disclosure is meaningless. It doesn't mean anything. And if you go to Solari, we have a missing money section, and we have extensive not only descriptions of FASB 56, but what it means to investors.
On what grounds could the federal government declare private businesses, the whole of itself, all kind of off limits to disclosure?
They have no legal basis because this is in violation of the Constitution, the financial management laws, and the financial management regulations. We have a section at Missing Money with 7 briefing papers. It took me 2 years working with our attorneys to do it, that describe all the financial management laws of the United States so that you can see. And luckily, one of the interesting things that happened when FASB 56 passed is Matt Taibbi picked up on it and wrote an article about it. It's funny, he emailed me, he said, okay, I got the briefing papers, thank God. Because it's very, if you're someone like Matt Taibbi, it's very hard to sit down and learn the financial management laws of the United States. That's why we did the briefing papers, so that any reporter could, get into this and master it in a reasonable period of time.
Was this or just a regulation? Was this voted on?
This is administrative policy. So in law, there's the Constitution, there's the financial management laws, there's the regulation, and then there's the administrative policy. So this is the total inversion. This is an administrative policy saying we can break the Constitution, the financial management laws, and the regulations by administrative policy. But the House, the Senate, and the White House all agreed. So it was a joint, and they tried to sneak it through. And I was very lucky because there was a guy at the time who worked for the American Federation of Scientists who literally read the Federal Register. And I had signed up for his newsletter because I didn't want to, but I trusted him to do it. And he would keep an eye on the black budget issues. A guy named Steve Aftergood, very good. And he, in his newsletter, he read it and he understood what it meant. Because it's so boring, nobody would understand.
Well, that's exactly right.
Right.
What's not boring, and I'm sorry to keep interrupting you, but I don't want anything to fall through the cracks. The black budget issues. What is the black budget, and what was he looking at, and why should we care?
So we have an overt economy, we have a covert economy. The covert economy is driven by a series of pools of money and cash flows. The first one, Joseph Farrell calls it the hidden system of finance. The first one started with all the seizures during the wars. So during World War II, a great amount of assets were seized, and that created a pool of money that was available for covert operations. So there's a wonderful story in Christopher Simpson's first book about how the money they had seized had been moved into the Exchange Stabilization Fund, which is the mother of all slush funds, that's managed by the Secretary of managed by the New York Fed for the Secretary of Treasury. So the money had been moved in, and the Dulles brothers are sitting at Sullivan and Cromwell, and they use that money to rig the 48 elections in Europe at the request of the Vatican. Anyway, so this is the, so we have this seizure pool. Then what happened? We passed the National Security Act in 47. And then in 49, we passed the CIA Act, which was very fractious. It literally took assassinating Forrestal to get that done. And
who was thrown out of a window?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's
at Bethesda Naval Hospital.
Right.
He'd been the Secretary of War.
And he was very opposed to the creation of the black budget and the creation of Israel. And so
who killed him? And why don't people understand that the defense secretary, the Secretary of War, was murdered?
So
I don't think 1 in 100 people know that.
So he was a Dillon Reed partner. So I knew that because I used to stare at his painting in the partners boardroom and or dining room, and they would, they